welcome to a new video. This is kind of a little bonus video because I hadn't done it yet and I forgot to fit it into my schedule, but here we are. Anyway, let's talk about the books I read in October and in November. I'm doing a one-take wrap-up. If you've never seen my channel before, basically what I do is I wrap up what books I read in the month, but I do it in one take because I hate editing. So let's just get right into it. I only have 12 books I read over the course of these 2 months. I just didn't read a lot. I just wasn't in the mood, and like 6 of them are comic books because I just really didn't feel like reading, but let's just get into it anyway. So first I read Kingdom of the Curse by Carrie Maniscalco. I have my iPad over here to look at my Goodreads and my iPad is dead, so I have to plug it in. But I liked this book. I did. I really liked this book. It's Carrie Maniscalco. I gave it a 5 stars. I will say I think it suffered just a little bit from middle book syndrome. I think that the finale will probably be the best book. There were also just some points in this book where I didn't know what was going on, and not necessarily in a good way, like, oh my god, I don't know what's going on, in a truly what is the plot of this story kind of way. And I don't know if it feels like it pivoted a lot from the first one, and like she's been very much influenced by the popular genre of the time, which is very much fantasy romance, spicy fantasy romance, and not that I don't love that, but this is, I think, maybe one of the only fantasy books I read this year, are these 2 books. Maybe I read The Last Serpent and Dove this year too, but just in general, I haven't been reading a lot of fantasy because I've not been in the mood for it. So it took me a long time to read this book because even though it was great and I loved it, I haven't really been in the mood for fantasy. But like, I can't let my girl Carrie Maniscalco down. I love her book so much. I have to read it. I will get to the 3rd one in the new year. I'll get to it. It's just takes a lot for me to focus on. Anyway, quick aside, did you see my Twilight shirt? It's Edward and Bella. Anyway, next, like I said, I gave that 5 stars. Next, I read the 2nd book in the Vampire Knitting Club, that is Stitches and Witches by Nancy Warren. This I really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun. I believe I actually read this in, well, I read this in October, so like Halloween time, and this one was like a Halloween themed one, which worked out perfectly. I did really enjoy it. I only vaguely remember the plot, to be honest, but no, I do remember the plot. I'm mixing up the 2nd and 3rd because I read them right back to back, but either way, I really am enjoying this series. I think it's a lot of fun. I do plan to continue. I think I will do the audiobooks because I just think there's something about cozy mysteries and audiobooks that just go together in my head. But it's really such a fun cozy mystery series. It's about this girl who shows up to England, finds out her grandmother has passed away, and that her grandmother left her knitting shop, and she has to decide if she wants to do that. And then amongst that, she finds out her grandmother is not actually dead, she's a vampire, and also she's a witch now. So it's just absolutely ridiculous, but so much fun and just exactly what I needed to read when I read it. So I had a lot of fun with this one. I gave it 4 stars, and I will for sure be continuing the series. I think there's like 10-ish out so far, and I've read the first 3, so I got plenty more to go, and I'm very excited about that. Next, I listened to the new release from this year, A Merry Little Meet Cute by who's Jerry? I don't know. Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. I did enjoy this one. I don't know. It wasn't what I expected. I still liked it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a lot of fun. I think, maybe it was just the movie set thing didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That was a weird situation to read the characters in. But I did really like the sex positiveness of it. I liked the conflict with the hero and like how he was trying to redeem himself and everything. And yeah, I did like it. I just didn't love it. I didn't fully feel the connection between the characters. But overall, I did really like the writing. Very spicy book, as one can assume if you've read the synopsis. And maybe that's just partly not exactly what I was in the mood for, but I did like it. I will say, for probably, like, I can listen to any kind of audiobook, even if it's spicy, no matter what I'm doing, really, but this is one I had to like turn off. I'm like, I was listening to it at work. I'm like, I can't be listening to this at work. This is not, it's not appropriate. And I switched to something else, but it was really good. I've never read a Sierra Simone before, and she really knows how to write like a spicy scene, and I love that. But maybe it didn't deliver enough on the Christmassy vibes. Like, we're filming a Christmas movie. I don't know. I did like it. I just didn't love it. Can't really put my finger on why. Next, I read the third book in the Vampire Knitting series. That is Crochet and Cauldrons. This one was Christmas themed, or was this one Thanksgiving themed? It was a holiday, and now I don't remember, but I did like it. I remembered liking it. I believe I listened to this one rather than read it, but it was really fun. Like I said, I love these characters. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars also, and I'm very intrigued later in the series, and I think I've actually looked this up already because I don't like not knowing how a series ends. I'm just gonna look it up. Why wait in anticipation when I can just know through Google? But I'm very interested in the relationship between the main character and the vampire. I love that dynamic. A witch and a vampire. We've seen it before. I'm sure we'll see it again, and I love it. I'm here for it. So I'm very interested to see how that goes. So next, I believe that's all I read in October. I think these next month's books are November, but I'm not sure. I listened to Doctor Who The Forever Trap by Dan Abnett, then Catherine Tate narrated it. This is one of the BBC audio stories that they have done for Doctor Who over the years. This was a 10th Doctor and Donna story. It was interesting. It would have made an interesting episode, I think, to like visually see. There were parts where I was kind of like not really paying attention, but it was a really quick audiobook. I enjoyed Catherine Tate's impression of David Tennant. Honestly, that might have been the best part. And I always love reading the Doctor Who audiobooks. I think it's a lot of fun and like a cool little extra way to see into the world, because when you watch the show, and I am currently rewatching the show, you see the characters so much, but really you're only seeing glimpses of the life that they are leading. Like, you see them go on these adventures, but there's so much happening in between episodes that we're not seeing, which I'm sure there's lots of fan fiction written on these in-between moments. I've read a lot of it, but there's a lot of other adventures that we're not seeing because they do crazy stuff like every day. So there's a lot of stuff that is left to be explored. So I really like these audiobooks. I enjoyed this one. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Not my favorite that I've read of the audiobooks, but I did like it. Next, one of my favorite books of the year actually is by Jasmine Guillory. I should have known. Jasmine Guillory, she does it again. I always love her books. I think she's just such a fun writer. This was kind of a different type of story for her, a different type of book. This was a closed door romance actually, and she wrote it about this girl who works at a publishing company, and she's on a work trip, and while she's there in California, she goes to visit this kind of washed up pop star guy who's supposed to be writing a memoir for them, but he hasn't done it yet. So she goes to his house and is like, hey, are you still gonna write this? Like, I can help you. And he's supposed to be like this really snarky recluse, but he's very taken with her, and he's like, well, if you think you can help me, why don't you try it? But you can't do it, kind of thing. And so she stays at his house and helps him write his memoir, and it was so much fun. I love the characters. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, in case you couldn't tell from that synopsis. It's part of the Meant to Be series, where it's a couple different authors do different retellings, and I need to read the other ones now too. I really, really liked this one, and I've read almost every one of Jasmine Guillory's books, and I've loved almost every single one. So she's just one of my all-time favorite authors, and if you have not read one of her books, I highly recommend them. I give that a 5 stars in case that wasn't obvious. Next, another favorite read, I read A Nun for the Viking Warrior by Lucy Morris, which this book is criminally underrated. It only has 47 reviews. So if you like historical romance, I beg of you to go read this book. It was so good. It was so good. I loved it so much. Shout out to Avery for telling me to read it. You were right. I loved it. I feel like I've said this on my channel before, but this My interest in this book stemmed from, I watched all 10 seasons of Call the Midwife, and I was so fascinated with the story of Sheila and Patrick, and that Sheila leaves being a nun to marry him, the doctor. And I was just like, one, didn't know you could do that. Two, like, that struggle of like leaving being a nun and choosing love, I just was like, I need more of that. Now this story is quite different than that, but like it had the vibes. Don't mind my dog. So this is a story much earlier in time than Call the Midwife. I couldn't tell you what year this was. It's when the Vikings were around. Have no clue what century that is. But she is training to be a nun. She did that so she could basically get away from her father. She has a very tragic childhood. I will insert trigger warning here for death of a parent and suicide. And then, so she's becoming a nun. She's a novice nun. I don't know if they have a name. Novice. And this Viking shows up at the door of the convent. It was like, actually, your dad sold you to me in marriage, so we have to get married now. And she's like, okay, well, didn't want that. And so they get married, and it's about them having to learn to accept each other and not be afraid of each other and trust each other, and like the like soft transition from like enemy strangers to like being intrigued by each other but still scared of each other to friends to lovers was just absolutely beautiful. I will be reading more of Lucy Morris's backlist because I loved her writing. It was so good. It was so good. I loved it. Highly recommend it. I'm telling you, there's only 47 reviews, only 134 ratings on this book. If that means only 134 people have read this book, I don't know what to tell you. Only like 15 people watch my videos, but if all 15 of you like historical romances, you should please go read this. It was so good. Next I read a series of comics. I read 4 comics. They were Hulkling and Wiccan Infinity Comics by Josh Truillo. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, but I read 1, 2, 3, and 4. And really loved them. If you've ever seen any of my comic videos, you know Hulkling and Wiccan are some of my favorite characters in the Marvel comics right now. Hulkling is a complicated character, but he is basically inherited being king of space, essentially, and he's beautiful and I love him. And Wiccan is the son of the Scarlet Witch. He inherited her reality warping powers. And they, in a recent-ish issue, I think last year or the year before, they've been dating for a while. They got married in an issue like last year, and so now they are newlyweds, and Hulkling is trying to figure out how to reign as king. Wiccan's just hanging out. First, what would you call it? First husband, I guess, rather than like first lady. So it's just been fun. But then they get kind of caught up in this series in someone is freaking, it's been Agatha all along. Agatha, the wicked old lady, who you might know from WandaVision. She's just wreaking havoc, as she does in the comics so often. And basically what she does is she tricks Wiccan into warping reality to be what would have happened if they hadn't gotten married. So Hulkling was with this other guy who he like made out of nothing, and then Wiccan was with this Greek guy that he had made reality warped, and it was what their relationships would have been like if they were with other people, and like they were happy but they were unhappy, and they were having flashes of memories of the real world. And then this series is actually, it's not finished. The 4th issue was literally published on like the 30th of November when I read it. So I don't know what happens after that. So I know Wiccan realizes and he turns reality back. And Agatha's like, I was just showing you what you need to know, blah, 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 as she does. But then the guy from Hulkling's story, his like alternate universe husband, shows up at the door asking for help. And that's where it ends. And issue 5's not out yet, and I don't know when it's coming out. So that's great for me. I don't usually read new comics. I didn't realize it was a new one before I'd read all 4 of them. So lastly, what I finished in November is All Is Merry and Bright by Casey Stockton. This was a historical romance, Christmas romance. I believe I listened to it. I listened to it? Yeah, I can't even remember. It was good. It was pretty good. I really liked the Christmas vibes. They really leaned into those, and I liked the characters. I liked the romance. It's a clean romance. I just wish it'd gone a little bit deeper, like just a little bit deeper with the connection of the characters. But overall, I did like it. I enjoyed the like larger cast of characters and getting to see everyone interact. And it was like when the characters think they don't like each other, but really them not liking each other is them hiding from the other one that they like each other. Did that make any sense? I don't know. But overall, I did like it. I just didn't love it. It wasn't super memorable. I give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I wouldn't be against trying another one of her books, but I think this was the only one my library had anyway. So that is all I read in October and November. I feel like I've been talking forever and I really want to go. So I hope you enjoyed. I upload videos every Sunday, booktube content. I have some extra videos planned in December, so keep a lookout for those. I think I'm just gonna upload this on like a random Monday. So when you're watching this, I will also have something bonus coming on Wednesday, or I will push it off to Sunday. I don't know. I never know what I'm doing. But I have quite a lot of videos planned and for December, kind of end of the year, bunch of like Vlogmas stuff, wrap up stuff, and then maybe I'll keep that momentum going, but probably not. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I will talk to you guys next time.